called what? Ego. This is the dog. So when the dog is barking, I know that the dog is barking. And you will all be able to sense that. When ego is, that the voice of ego is talking in the back of your mind, you will know that this is ego talking. So now you know the dog is barking. Whenever the dog starts barking, do the opposite. Whatever the dog says, do the complete opposite of that. So let's take an example. Let's say you walk into a room and there are people there and they're all looking for a seat, and there's a seat. There are very few seats available in the room. Okay, you walk into the room and there are quite a few people who are stood up, and there's maybe 1 or 2 seats available. Your ego tells you, you should go and take that seat because you're elderly or you're senior, so you should go and take that seat. If you know that this is your ego barking, then do the opposite. Offer that seat to somebody else. Now you got to be very careful here. An Arahatun Mahanse, if he sees that there's a seat there, if he's also the most senior monk, he would go and take that seat. He would not hang around waiting, offering it to others. If he knows that he's the most senior monk there, he would go and take that seat because he knows fully well that this seat is deserved by the seniority here, not by him as the person, because he's an Arahant. He has no self that needs to be fostered. So that seat is deserved by the seniority, that he knows. But if it's someone who's not an Arahatun Mahanse, anybody else might feel that I deserve the seat not because of my seniority, but because I'm good. I deserve the seat. The self takes prominence there. So in that situation where there's a few seats or there's 1 or 2 seats and there's quite a few people standing around looking for a seat, if you feel that I deserve that seat, so I need to go and take it for reasons other than the accepted customs and norms of what determines who gets to take a seat in that priority. If you feel that you need to go and take it simply because of the self and you feel that you are an important person, then do the complete opposite of that. Offer it to somebody else. Offer it to somebody else. Sometimes, the ego is a very funny one. Sometimes we like to show that we are humble. The dangerous word there is we like to show that we are humble. Being humble is fine. Humility is a good thing. But not when you want to show that you are humble. Not when you want to display and exhibit the fact that you are humble. Then that's ego. Some people, they go to great lengths to show that they are very humble. For instance, if there are seats to be taken, so I know some people, they'll go and take the lowest seat. There are plenty of seats to be taken, and that's not because that's the seat that they find comfortable, but they'll go and take the lowest seat because they want to show, they want to display, they want to exhibit that they are humble. That is also again ego taking the better of you. If it's your ego barking you to say go and take the lowest seat, do the complete opposite. Go and just take a normal seat. Don't go for the low seat. Particularly practitioners of the Dhamma may find themselves in that situation. Let's say you're here to, you're in the audience and you walked into this room and you want to find somewhere to sit. You may feel that, I'm now a practitioner of the Dhamma, I need to be humble, so therefore I'm going to go and take the seat right at the back. Because that's me showing my humbleness. If that is your ego barking, then do the complete opposite. Because if that's you trying to show your humility, if you try to demonstrate and display and exhibit your humbleness, then do the complete opposite, because otherwise you're falling trapped to your ego. But sometimes, that's why I say you got to be doing this very carefully. Okay, now that's not to say that anyone who goes and sits at the back has this problem. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you got to be careful, because only you know when your ego is playing up. Only you know that, and you got to be careful. So coping mechanisms. So that's another coping mechanism for ego, and this is usually the manifestation which we recognize of moha or delusion. So in addition to the ones that I have mentioned, you will also have others that you may be using in your own lives. So this is why I say what I have given you is not a categorical list of the coping mechanisms, but there will be some that you can make use of. And just to add to what, remind you of what we spoke about in the sermon yesterday, when it comes to sensuality, is when you see, sometimes when we see people who we find quite attractive, we forget the fact that they are also people to begin with. We only see the attractiveness. We almost begin to think that they're not, they don't have the human needs that we all do, like needing to eat and sleep and having to exercise or using the toilet. Now these are all needs that every human being has. When you put all that into context, you begin to realize that just as much as I don't enjoy doing all these things, well, the other person is the same. That girl that you see today walking down the street and you think she's pretty, she's quite attractive, you got to remind yourself that she woke up this morning, she didn't want to see herself in the mirror until she went and washed herself. Then she had to go use the toilet. Then she had to go and eat something because she was hungry. And now she's on the way to work because she needs to earn a living. Otherwise, she's going to be suffering. So she needs to find shelter. She needs to find clothing. Her mother is probably ill. And she's probably got some back pain or some kind of other disease for which she has to take some medicines. See, when you put all of that into context, now it doesn't look so glamorous like it did a moment ago. Because otherwise you only see the shell on the outside. And all that glitter and all that glistening outside it covers all the reality of people's lives. So just ask yourself for a moment, when you were dating, before you got married and settled down, it was so glamorous. It's like fantasy. Everything was so beautiful, flawless. Then you got married. That's when you began to understand each other inside out. And then you begin to understand that this is another person that suffers just like I do. They've got the same needs that I do. Another person is suffering just like I do. That's when all the glamour started to go away. See, what if you could see this before the fact? That puts things into context. That's why I say, for especially young people, and I'm quite happy with the fact that we're talking about this on the English sermon, because there are a lot of people who listen to these sermons online and are non-native speakers. Because I know a large population, in fact, did you know that of all the internet traffic, global internet traffic, over 80% of that is pornography. Global internet traffic, over 80% of that is pornography and gambling. Is the two of them put together. It's only the remaining 15 or 20% that is everything else. So government information, right? Sciences and your Wikipedias and your all of the other stuff, medical, history and all the other sciences, all of that stuff is just 20%, a very, very tiny proportion. 80% or more of the global internet traffic is pornography and gambling. Does that not tell you about people's mindset? How much sensuality has grasped people's lives and now they've just gone blind. See, people aren't able to see reality because they've been blinded. This is why we need to take this message out to people, young people particularly. I think from 2008 to about 2012, if I'm not mistaken, that the Google stats show that the word sex, sex, was most searched by which country in this world? How you know? Let's all celebrate that. What an achievement. What does that tell about our young people population? Vexation. We've all sensed what sensuality is and the fire of that. How much we burn on the inside because of that. And if you, by whatever amount you have been able to extinguish that fire, by that amount today I will tell you that you're able to experience the bliss and the joy and the happiness of being able to let go of that fire, of putting out that fire. That's why an Arahatan Mahanse who has completely extinguished the fire of sensuality enjoys ultimate bliss. So then think about it, our population, both young, middle-aged, and also the elderly. Sri Lanka is a very small country in the world. Some maps you can't even see Sri Lanka. Such a small country in the world to hold the world record. To have sold the world record, to have searched that word most times using the Google search engine for 5 years in a row. I mean, if that's Sri Lanka, then think about all the other countries. Sri Lanka with a very small population. Think about all the other countries in the world and how much people must be suffering because of this, but not even realizing that they're suffering. That's why particularly this is the danger with sensuality, karma. This danger with sensuality is it gives you a blinkered vision. Right? It takes away your sight of what's really going on. Completely draws a curtain in front of you. And now all you see is what you see on the surface, like the tip of the iceberg. Everything beneath the surface is gone, invisible. All that made up stuff, that's all you see. But all this real stuff, that's all gone. This is why I say, when you experience sensuality, when you experience that burning urge and the desire and the temptations and the lure of sensuality, I want you to take a moment to stop. Just take a breather. Take a moment to stop. Use one of these coping mechanisms. This girl that you're seeing right now and you're having sensual desires for, did you not realize that she had to wake up this morning and go and use the toilet? If you had found her in that position, would you be feeling the same way you're feeling now? Right now, you're seeing her all dressed up, glamoured up, right? All the bells and whistles and, fully colored up and everything. But an hour ago, she was on the toilet. An hour ago, she was stuffing herself because she was hungry. An hour ago, she was taking her pills because she was unwell or had some bad backache or a headache or something. But when, it's like the stage. Once she gets on the stage, then you don't see any of that stuff. Like when you watch a play on the stage, you don't see all the training that went on behind the scenes, right? All the training and the sleepless nights and all the makeup that they had to put to make these people look presentable. None of that you see, because on the stage, it's just a stage show. That's what people applaud. But if they show you what all the hard work that had to go into making this play, now you're going to feeling sorry for them. You all seen ballet dancers? Do you know how much pain they go through to become a ballet dancer? If you ever see a ballet dancer, look at their toes. They go through extreme physical pain. And in some countries, they shape their bodies up from a very young age. They almost torture them to become ballet dancers. When they dance on stage, it's an amazing sight. And everyone applauds. But if you just take a moment to stop and ask yourself, what must they have had to do to get on this stage to give this performance? Then now you start shedding a tear. A while ago, as a layperson, I did some research into the what men and women who are engaged in the pornography business, okay, what life is like for them, because what they show on stage is not what is real. What life is like, what normal, how do they, a day in the life of a porn star. If any of you get some time, it's an interesting bit of research to do, just to look at what their life is like. And then when you begin to read their stories, when you begin to realize what they have to put themselves through, all for nothing other than to get a square meal on their table so that they can be freed from hunger. That's a show to entertain you so that you will watch it, so that they get paid, so that they can eat, so that they can address their hunger. How can you have sensual thoughts about someone like that? Is it not sympathy and pity you begin to feel after that for them? See, none of you had to do any of that. You're all teachers, doctors, engineers, lawyers, right? People who use your skills and talents. You never had to use your body to earn your living. You never had to use a body to earn your living. But they did. And they still do. What you see on stage is a very different story behind scenes. Some escorts, escorting business, where you can pay people money to come and spend time with you. If you read the stories about their lives, you'll be shocked. I did some research about that because I wanted to find out, what you see on the surface is not what's real. That I began to understand when I was listening to Guru Swami Nonsense sermons. What you see on the outside is not what's really going on behind the scenes. If only you take some time to study the lives of escorts, both men and women, right, who earn money to sell their bodies, and the amount of grief and torment and torture that they go through on a daily basis, and the fear with which they live, it's incredible. It's shocking. Shocking. It brings a tear to your eye, folks. If you only take a moment to study these stories of these people's lives, and some of them are mothers of young children. The only way that they can feed their child is if they engage in the escort business, if they sell their bodies to somebody. Some of them, because of the circumstances that they found themselves in growing up, they were tortured and they were abused by either their family or relations or teachers. As a result of that, it left a deep and dark experience in their minds, and they were completely, the way that they looked at the world and their perspective on life and their self-value, their self-worth was completely diminished. And as a result of that, they thought, I'm not good for anything else. I'm just an object for people to use. That's how someone left them feeling. And as a result of that, they lost their self-value, self-esteem, and then they no longer wanted to go and, do something and earn something for themselves using their talents and their skills. As a result of that, slowly but gradually and eventually, they were led towards something that they never had planned or thought for themselves. And today they have become escorts. But if you only take a moment to stop and read about them, find out about them, study their lives, now you begin to realize, good Lord, these are people who are suffering tremendously. Because for us, whenever you see pleasure, you need to go and find out the backstory. The sex trade backstory is a very painful one. It's a very sad story. A lot of patients come and see doctors about them. Psychologists spend a lot of time with sex workers because the backstory nobody sees, and how they have to bribe officials just to be able to continue doing their jobs, and how they have to give sexual favors to others just to continue doing their jobs. People don't take a moment to stop and think what's going on. This is what I'm saying. Again, this is not Nibbana. This is all coping mechanisms. Putting things into perspective. That's what I'm saying. If you have an addiction to pornography, right, and you are sitting in front of that computer watching those video clips, or this may not apply to everyone in the audience, but there's a large population of young listeners who are listening to these sermons online, and those who don't listen to the singular sermons also. If you or anyone you know have such problems, I want you to explain to them. Just take a moment to think about what's really going on behind the scenes. Each of those scenes, you've got a film crew. What looks like an intimate connection, relationship between two people. That's all you see, because that's all the camera captures. Behind the camera, there's a whole crew of people. One's holding the makeup kit, the other's holding the cut sign. Cut, right? Shoot, 3, 2, 1, go. Then there's the directors, there's the lightmen, there's the camera crews, and everybody. And everyone, this is a display. Now where's the glamour in that? Some scenes, they have to be shot 10 times over because it doesn't capture the experience properly. It doesn't capture it properly. So you can't sell it. See, now think for a moment, why is that man and woman doing that? Whatever they're doing, it's so that they can earn a living, so that they can feed their hunger, so that they can put a square meal on their table, so that they can feed their family, so that they can send their child to school. How can you have sensual thoughts about that? So that they can send their child to school. So that he or she can get their young infant inoculated, get the right medicines for her ailing grandmother, or for her ailing mother. Her mother's medication cannot be bought unless she goes and engages in today's scene, or engage in a sexual trade. When you put that into context, how can you have sensual thoughts about what people are doing? In engaging in sensual acts. That's the story behind the scenes. Again, that's not the Noble Eightfold Path, but this is a coping mechanism. Because I know there'll be a lot of people, a lot of young people who come and talk to us regularly. A lot of young people come and talk to us about this problem on a regular basis, almost daily. Emails come flooding through, letters, young people. 80% of the world's global internet traffic, ladies and gentlemen, is pornography. Now think about it. How many people may be addicted to this? And they can find no refuge because none of them have had the Buddha's teaching. So, we need to open people's eyes. Because every man and woman and child deserves to be happy. Sensuality is not an answer to happiness. It's a fire that burns from within. You know this because you will have all sensed it at some point in your lives. Otherwise you wouldn't be in the sensual world. It's a fire that burns from within. It's the fire of raga, the fire of dvesha, the fire of moha. It's a fire, and what a fire does is burn. It burns you from the inside. A lot of young people come and talk to us about this. Then they listen to the Dhamma, and now they want to apply anicca dukkha anatta. But the problem is, in the moment where everything's just in flames, and you can't now start making sense of things, they don't have that peace of mind. Their mind is too flustered to be able to apply the Dhamma. So a coping mechanism in such situation might be quite handy. For instance, if you have an affliction or an addiction to something like that, perhaps a sticker that can go on your computer monitor might be helpful. Maybe a wallpaper which says, "Did you know that she was your mother in your last birth?" ? That's all. That can do the trick. How can you look at someone and have sensual thoughts, reminding yourself that she was your mother in your previous birth? She was who bore you and brought you into this world? That few moments can be enough time for you to take a step back and now go and apply anicca dukkha anatta. Because in the heat of the moment, otherwise you lose it all. Did you know that she was your daughter in the last birth? Did you know that he was your son? Did you know that he was your father in the last birth? And this is not just for males, females have this problem equally. Both men and women. We know because people come and talk to us about these problems. I thought I knew people's problems before I became a monk. Little did I know. I knew nothing. Today I realize how much people suffer because of Raga, Dvesha, Moha. Raga, Dvesha, Moha is a curse. If you ever become a monk, you will begin to realize this. When people come and share their most intimate stories with you, stories that they have never shared with any friend or even a parent, how young children, having been abused at a young age, and the mark that it leaves on them, the black mark that it leaves in their memory, and then they just cannot get over it. Sometimes by a teacher, an uncle, an aunt, sometimes, and they just can't get over it after that. And then as a result of that, their self-value, their self-worth is diminished, gone. Now they just feel like they have to avenge society for what has been done to them. So to take revenge on society for what has been done to them, what do? They inflict the same treatment that was given to them. It's a vicious cycle. Only Buddhism has the answers to this. Everything else is a coping mechanism. You can't cope forever. You got to treat it with the problem. But these are all good coping mechanisms to put things into perspective, put things into context. So as I say, you will also have other techniques, coping mechanisms. What I have shared with you today, add them to your list of coping mechanisms and use them as you need it. Perhaps you're on your phone, wallpaper, your phone background, whatever, you can have it. Did you know that you're a doctor? This person who's talking to you, he's a patient. You're the doctor now. Are you ready to play the doctor's part? That could be your phone wallpaper. If you have to deal in a situation where a lot of angry people talk to you, sometimes maybe you work in customer services, right? Or perhaps you are a senior manager, and a lot of the time you get problems that come to you, and anger plays a big role in your a big part in your role, and you really want to deal with this problem. Perhaps that could be what you can do. Or maybe if you have a calendar, desk calendar, on that you can print or write in small words, just a small line. This man who's come in front of you, he's angry. So he's a patient. He's just come looking for a doctor. Are you ready to be the doctor? Are you the doctor? See, simple. Just thinking about looking at that for a brief moment can put you into the right perspective. Take a moment, take a step back. Just until